So today we will cover Python exception handling. It is also one of the beautiful topic in object-oriented programming. What is an exception? How an exception raised in a program is a disadvantageous fact. Python providing a mechanism that is exception handling mechanism. That exception handling mechanism we use to handle exception. So first we have to know what is an exception. What is an exception? An exception is an unexpected event. Unexpected or unwanted events. Unwanted event that disrupts disrupts the normal flow of execution. That disrupts the normal flow of execution. Disrupts means disturbs. Suppose let it I have a Python class sharply at 8:30 at Silan Software premises. My objective is I will learn Python, I will write something, I will ask something. Overall, I will gain some knowledge about Python. That's why I am attending the class. Now I came to class and now the class started. Now the class started after 20 minutes. Let suppose I slept yesterday. Suppose I had gone to bed in late time. So that's why for that reason sleeping event came. But I have not expected. I have never thought in Python classroom after 20 minutes I will sleep. But that event automatically came. So I can say that sleeping event is an unexpected event, unwanted event. So once I slept after 20 minutes, then my objective disturbed, my objective disrupted, because my objective is how to gain knowledge, how to learn Python, write something. So these are my objectives. But once I slept, the entire objective disturbed. So we can say that sleeping event, unwanted event, unexpected event, that is an exception. Similarly, in Python program that we know Python program executed by Python interpreter. Python interpreter executing line by line. That means through interpreting. Suppose we have 5 lines of code. Suppose first line or second line an exception arising. I will show you how an exception is arising. So on which line exception will arise? On that line, the execution process will stop. As a result, the remaining statement will not execute. So in a program, if all statements are not executing, so we cannot get the output. So if we will not get the output, then that is called as what we can say abnormal termination. Program is abnormally terminating. In a program, if all statements are executing and we are getting output, we can say that is normal termination. In a program, some statements are executing, some statements are not executing, we are not getting output, that is abnormal termination. So an exception when it is arising in a program, we say program is abnormally terminated. So when an exception raised in a program, raised in a program, the program abnormally terminates. Hence, an exception raised in a program is a disadvantageous fact. This is the point. So first of all, so we will get the clarity. So what is an exception? What is an exception? Okay, I will show you how an exception is arising. Now, I will go to my Jupyter notebook environment. So I am creating a new Python file. File, new file that I am creating. So this is my new file, and I will give the file name, let Python exception handling. Python exception handling. Suppose I will write x equals to, let 10 by 0. We have three output statements. Hi, print, hello, print, let 10 by 5 suppose. Let it, we have 4 lines of code. The Python interpreter executing line by line. So first line it will execute. So when Python interpreter, basically we say Python control. When Python control read this line, something divided by 0, that is undefined. So when the control is not able to understand what is the solution of this line, so when the control is not able to evaluate, then the control will fail. It is an exception. It is an exception. Something divided by 0, that is completely undefined. So once the control felt this line representing an exception, so internally an exception object control is creating and immediately forwarding to the default exception handler, that is a part of control. Then control will give the instruction, so try to handle, otherwise give the description to the programmer, the detail exception in detail. Due to that means due to this reason, we cannot able to execute your code. Then default exception handler will tell if the programmer will write handling code that I can handle. But still now we don't know what is handling code. Then control will give the instruction, you give the details, you give the exception detail to the programmer. So on this line, exception is arising. So as a result, on from this line, the execution process will stop. So as a result, these remaining three statements cannot execute. So you see, now I will hit run. So you see, so what the Python control is providing. So which type of exception is coming, you see. So arrow mark is indicating in this line exception is arising. So what is exception? Which exception? 0 division error, and after colon division by 0. this is the description. Due to division by zero, an exception is arising. The name of the exception is zero division error. So that's why we cannot execute your program. So like this, the control will give the message, give the exception description in detail to the program. Okay, and you see zero division error. Z is uppercase, here D is uppercase, here E is uppercase, single word. It is a built-in child class or it is a built-in sub class. You remember, this is a built-in exception. Every exception, you remember one point Python context. Every exception is one built-in child class. Then question will arise, sir, who or which class is the parent class? The parent class name is exception. You remember, parent class name is exception. Okay, then I will go to next example. So here it is an exception. That exception name is zero division error. After colon division by zero, that is the description. Due to division by zero, an exception is arising. That exception name is zero division error. Suppose same thing. Suppose I have a list. Let my list name is list 1. Let it 10, comma 20, comma 30, comma 40, comma 50. Suppose I have a variable. Let variable name is result. Suppose I will write list of 5 divided by 2. Let print hi, print, let hello, print. Suppose list 1 of 0 divided by 2. Suppose this is my second scenario. So we have a list. Name of the list is list 1 containing 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So this line executed. Now, when the control came to this line for execution, you see list 1 of 5. 5 is the index value. 0th index, 1 index, 2 index, 3 index, 4 index. So the programmer is trying to access fifth index data item. Fifth index means sixth data item, but there is no sixth data item. We are trying to access sixth data item, but there is no sixth data item. So this line representing an exception. So control is not able to evaluate this line because there is no sixth data item. Okay, so on this line, exception will arise, and from this line, the execution process will stop. So as a result, with this line, the remaining 3 statements will not execute. Now I will hit run. You see, so when I executed, what I got, index error, zero division error. Previously we saw. Now another exception we saw, that is index error, and after colon, so this is the description, list index out of range, list index out of range. Okay, due to this reason an exception is arising, and the name of the exception is index error, because we are trying to access fifth index data item, but there is no fifth index in list 1. That's why an exception is arising. Okay, so now overall it is a disadvantageous fact because execution process is stopping, program is abnormally terminating. But if this is my scenario, how we will handle this exception. Okay, how we will handle this exception. So that's why Python providing a mechanism, Python providing a mechanism that is exception handling mechanism. That is exception handling mechanism that we use to handle exception. So this mechanism it consists some keywords like try, except, finally. Then another keyword is arrays keyword, arrays keyword. So it consists by taking four keywords. We will see one by one. Try, except, finally, and range. Basically, try is a block. Basically, try is a block. Directly, I will show you practically. Basically, what I told, try is a block. Suppose, let it I copied this. Try, except. So what I told, I copied this code. Basically, try is a block. It contains a risky code. Risky code means on which line the exception is arising. So in this line, our exception is arising. So I will specify within a try block in this way. So what I told according to the concept, what the concept is saying. So on which line exception is arising, you specify inside the try block. Try is a block. Basically, it contains risky code. That does not mean that normal code we cannot write. Yes, we can write, but as less as possible, we will write the normal code inside the try block. Then there is a good bonding in between try block and except block. Without except, try is meaningless. Without try, except is meaningless. So once an exception caught by the control inside the try block, immediately from this line, control will jump. Basically, it is a transfer statements. In flow control, I have told. So on which line inside the try block, on which line exception is arising, from that line the control will transfer. The control will jump to the except block. To the except block. So except block. So except block basically contains handling. So handling code means what? If the except block will execute successfully, then our exception will handle. We will see how that exception is handling. So what is the format? What is the syntax of except block? Except here type of exception raised inside the try block. Inside the try block, x equals 10 by 0, 10 by 0 representing which type of exception? 0 division error. This exception is coming. So that type of exception you mention as, suppose A, there is a syntax. Except type of exception raised inside the try block. So one alias of that type of exception we will represent. As is a keyword, this is representing an alias. Alias means alternative. E is the alternative of zero division error. So whatever I will write, suppose Python programming. So now this line is called as a handling code. So it is an output statement. So if Python programming came to the picture in our output screen, then exception will handle. How I will know exception will handle? So remaining statement hi, hello, 10 by 5, that is 2. So remaining statement will execute. If I will get the output hi, then hello, then 2, then we got your exception handled. Okay. Now you see, I will hit run. So happily I got the output. Python programming, then hi, hello, 2. So Python programming, this is the handling code. So Python programming, I got the output. So handling code executed successfully. So once a handling code is executing successfully, remaining statement executing. Remaining statement executing. Okay, remaining statement executing. Once remaining statement is executing, so that means we got the output. So all statements are executing and we are getting output. Hence, we can say it is a normal termination. It is a normal termination. Clear? Same point. Suppose same point. Suppose second example. Now I copied. Now I pasted here. So this line representing exception, I will write within a try block. Then immediately after that, I will represent except block. Except types of exception is index error. Types of exception is index error as any alias. So print Python for data science. Suppose. So now this line is handling code. So type of exception raised inside the try block and which type of alias. That type of exception alias, it is mandatory that we have to specify. If it will mismatch, here index error is arising. If I will write zero division error, so it will mismatch. So if it will mismatch, handling code will not execute. If handling code will not execute, then remaining statement will not execute. If the remaining statement will not execute, we can say program will abnormally terminate. So you see, now type of exception raised inside the try block, type of exception what we have specified in except block. So it is matching. So if it is matching, so handling code will execute. So once handling code, here handling code is one output statement, that is Python for data sets. So once handling code will execute, then remaining statement will execute hi, then hello, then 10. At least one of 0 is 10. So 10 by 2, that is 5. You see, now I will hit run. You see, happily we got the output. Python for data science, hi, then hello, then 5. So happily we got the outputs. So once we are getting output, we can say program is normally terminated. Suppose one question, suppose may arise. Suppose if you are not able to know which type of exception is arising, which type of exception index error is arising. Suppose I have no idea. So if you are not able to identify which type of exception is arising, so you can write here exception. You can write here exception. Because currently I was telling exception is the parent class of any exceptions. So all exception in Python are 1111 built-in child class. All exceptions are one built-in child class. Child class. So exception is the parent class. So once we will specify parent class, you see. So now I will hit run. The same output I am getting. So I hope you got the clarity. So using try and except block. Okay. So without except try is meaningless. Without try except is meaningless. So basically it is a transfer statement. Then we will go to finally. So finally, keyword. Try is a keyword, except is a keyword. Try is a block, except is a block. Currently, we saw try block containing risky code, except block containing handling code. Finally is also a block. Similarly, finally is a block which contains clean off code. Clean off. That means basically finally block contains clean off code. Finally block. Finally is a block contains clean off code. Clean off code. That means once a finally block is present, once a finally block is present, it must execute. It must execute whether an exception is handled or exception is not handled. So finally is a such block. Finally is a such block. Once an exception, once an exception is arising, so there is no problem. If the exception is not handled, finally block will execute. If the exception will handle, as usual, finally block will execute. That means once a finally block is present, it must execute whether an exception is handled or not handled. Suppose this code I am copying, paste here. Suppose here I will write zero division error. Suppose I will write zero division error. I will write zero division error. And you see, so inside the try block, index error, this exception is coming. But here I specified zero division error. So definitely it is mismatching. If it is mismatching, so exception will arise. So if exception will arise, handling code will not execute. If handling code will not execute, remaining statement will not execute. So program will abnormally terminate. Now you see, I will. So as usual, so exception came. Suppose I am not able to handle this exception, but these three statements anyhow I have to execute. I need to get the output of these three statements, but exception is not handling. I am not able to handle. So what I will do? So I will write within a finally block. What I will do? I will write within a finally block. Finally, within a finally block, I will write. So here, exception is not handled, but there is a finally block. So when it will execute, so what is the concept? The concept is first the control will check. Okay, control checked, control verified, exception is not handling. But first the control will check, is there any finally block present here? Yes, finally block is present. So if the finally block is present, first the control will execute finally block. First the control will execute finally block first. That means hi, then hello, list 1 of 0, that is 10 by 2, that is 5. So first finally block will execute. Then as usual, this exception will arise, index error, list index out of range. You see, now I will hit run. So hi, then hello, then 5, then as usual, exception have raised. Okay, so here we saw whether exception is not handled, finally block executed. Once a finally block is present, that finally block executed. And if the exception is handled, if I will write index error, so it is matching. So if exception is handled as usual normally, so if exception is handled, so Python for data science, first this message will come to the picture, then finally block will execute. Then if suppose after finally block, if I will write suppose I will write exception handled. So after finally block, then this is remaining statement. So it will handle. There is a try block, there is an except block, there is a finally block, and there is a remaining statement. So if exception is handled, so Python for data science, Then finally block will execute a hi, then hello, then 10 by 2 that is 5, exception handle. You see, I will hit run. Happily I got the output. Okay, so overall what we observed, so finally is a such type of block. Once it is present, it must execute whether an exception is handled or exception is not handled. I hope you got the clarity. Everybody got clarity. So try, then accept, then finally we completed. Then we will go to the last keyword, that is range. This is very important. Range keyword basically used in customized exception. Customized. Customized. Suppose I told 10 by 0, that is an exception. So when that line is executing, exception is arising. That means internally an exception object control is creating and control is throwing to the default exception handler. Here raise is a keyword. Explicitly we will throw an exception object. That means the programmer manually hand over an exception object to the control. Suppose I am throwing a ball. Somebody is catching that ball. So I am throwing a ball. I am means programmer throwing a ball. Ball means exception object. To whom? To the control. Maybe question may sir, why we will hand over manually an exception object to the control? So that is for customized exception, and that is the only real-time scenario point. Suppose I will tell raise. Raise is a keyword. Raise. Suppose I will write zero division error. Raise exception name. Suppose I will write division by 0. Division by 0. This is my description. So I will hit run. You see, so 10 by 0 output same 0 division error colon division by 0. So this is, it is representing we are throwing an 0 division error. We are throwing this exception manually to the control. Manually to the control. Why? Now I will explain. Basically, a raise keyword is used to raise an exception, to throw an exception in case of what? Customized exception. So important terminology in this whole exception handling chapter, that is customized exception. I know 10 by 0 that is representing exception. Why I will write? If I will think from the developer point of view, suppose I am a developer, I am developing an application, why I will write 10 by 0? If I have a list and it is clearly visible this list is containing 5 number of data items, why I am trying to access 6 data item? I know if I will access 6 data item, it will give an exception. It will raise an exception. So why I will write? Why I am trying to access 6 data items? So in a real-time point of view, if I will think, so there is no usage. Okay. So which point basically that is coming to our picture in a real-time scenario? Suppose let it, I am going to my one ATM machine. Let it I have forgotten my availability balance. Let in my account my balance is 20,000. But I inserted my ATM card, followed some instructions. I am trying to withdraw 25,000. One message is coming, sorry, insufficient fund. So that sorry, insufficient fund, that is the description. So logic the developer have developed. If available balance is less than withdrawal balance, I will raise an exception and description is sorry insufficient fund. So that is customized exception. Balance not sufficient error. This is customized exception. So what do you mean by customized exception? That is very important, and particularly range keyword is used for customized exception. So Python, this is the last point, Python customized exception. When an exception is defined by user based on client requirement. Client requirements is known as customized exception, customized or user defined exceptions. User defined exception. So whatever we define based on the client requirements. Suppose as a developer will develop the application by taking the client requirement. So that's why I wrote based on the client requirement. Whatever we define the exception, that is customized exception or user defined exception. Okay, so we will see by taking an example. Suppose one scenario I will represent. Suppose let it you consider the matrimony application. Matrimony site, matrimony.com, bharatmatrimony.com, sadhi.com, sangam.com. So various matrimony sites are going on. So that is an application. Somebody have developed, some organization have developed so for a particular client. So matrimony site, that is an application. Every user using that application. Somebody is searching, a boy is searching a girl, or a girl is searching a suitable boy for the marriage purpose. Suppose a candidate came to the application, and the candidate is filling all the details. The candidate have to submit all the information in detail. Suppose a candidate age is 99, that candidate is taking interest to marry. Then immediately after providing the details, or after submitting the form, immediately the application provided a response, sorry, we cannot help you. So definitely client have some requirements. Suppose you will develop an application, one matrimony application, that a client provided a task. So definitely you will ask to client. So what is the age limit that we will give? Otherwise, application will provide a negative response. So client have given the requirements. Suppose client have given, if the age value is greater than 60, we cannot help. We cannot do anything. Suppose another candidate came, his age is 14. Then similarly, that candidate putting all the information, then submitting, immediately the application again gave a response, sorry, we cannot help you, you have to wait some years. That means suppose client have given the requirements. If the value of age is less than 18, we cannot help. If the value of age is greater than 60, we cannot help. So this type of analysis, suppose we did. Okay, suppose two exception. Suppose two exception in this context, in this scenario. Let two old error and one is two young error. Let so whatever we can give the name. Ramadama Sama, whatever we can give the name, because customized exception. So the exception defined by the user, User defined exception. We are giving the name. But thing is that how the term too old error, how the term too young error, the control will know it is an exception. That is the most important point. Then we will do little bit analysis. Zero division error is a built-in child class where parent class is the exception. Index error, it is a built-in child class. Key error, value error, attribute error. So many exceptions that we will bring to my mind. And I am feeling every exception is 1111 built-in child class. So where parent class is exception. Already we have studied inheritance. So if all exceptions are child class, subclass, so we can make it who old error, who young error, we can make it a child class. So how? Class name, who old error, class name within bracket exception. Because exception is the parent class. Let pass. There is no what need to write any body. Suppose I have no body. Similarly, I will write class to young exception. Young error. Whatever you write, exception. So now pass. Okay, so in this way, I presented two old error and two young error. Two old error is a child class. I made it. Two young error is a child class. I made it. Exception is the parent class. As per the analysis, after analysis I did. Now, logic is what exception I will throw based on the age value. So definitely I will take a variable age. Suppose my requirement is I will give the age value through the keyboard at the runtime. So definitely I will write this part we have known input function, enter the age value. So if my requirement is the age value, I will give at the runtime through the keyboard. So input function that we have to invoke. Input function is a such built-in function by default. Every value this function treat as a string value, but we have to give the age value, that is int value. So that's why target type int is specified. This is called as casting. So very simple logic. If age is greater than 60, if age is greater than 60, I will throw an exception. So I hope you got the clarity where the concept of range or where the range keyword that I am using. Range exception name to old error, and within bracket I can write a description. Sorry, we can't help you. Sorry, we can't help you. This is my description. So if condition is true, then if body will execute. If body is raise an exception to old error within bracket description. Then again else if. So in Python there is a keyword elif. Age is less than 18. Raise to young error. To young error within bracket I will write a description. Sorry, you have to wait. Whatever you write, you have to wait some years. Whatever. Then else a positive response. Print. Let congrats. So like this I wrote. So very simple. If condition is true, then this line will execute. If this condition will be false, then the control will come to this line. If this condition is true, then this line will execute. If the condition is false, then lastly else statement will execute. You see, now I will hit run. So enter the age value. Suppose I will put 8 age. Now the candidate age is 8 age. Enter. You see, so as usual exception came. Through old error after colon. Sorry, we cannot help you. So already we have seen from the beginning in which way the exception outputs come to our picture. This now 88 I provided, so this condition is true. Now this line executed. Now again I will hit run. Suppose I will give 40. Now enter. You see, through young error. Sorry, you have to wait some years. After colon description, before colon exception net to young error. Again I will run. Suppose I will give 29. Enter. Congrats. Positive response that I got. So this is all about customized exception. My point is I have to represent where the keyword raise is using. This is very, very important in whole topic. So this is a real-time concept. Customized exception or user-defined exception. Whatever the exception we use, whatever the exception we define based on the client requirement. Based on the client requirement. So that is user-defined exception or customized exception. Whatever we define the exception. And basically, raise keyword we use in customized exception. This is all about exception and exception handling mechanism in detail.